August 22nd, 1922. The skies over Los Angeles had turned pitch black. A rare, violent storm was battering the city, drowning out the noises of the street. But inside a luxurious home in the Lafayette Park neighborhood, the thunder outside was nothing compared to the violence erupting inside. From the master bedroom, the sounds of a struggle shattered the silence. Fred Oesterreich, a wealthy textile manufacturer, was in a rage. He was shouting, his voice booming off the walls. His wife Dolly was screaming. It was a sound of terror. Objects were being thrown. The violence was escalating. To anyone listening, it sounded like the end. But there was a third person listening, someone the world didn't know existed. Suddenly, a panel in the corner of the room, a secret door disguised, seamlessly into the wall, swung open. From the darkness of the crawl space, a figure emerged. He didn't look like a hero. He didn't even look fully human. He was a wisp of a man, barely 5 feet tall, pale as a corpse, skeletal, with eyes that blinked rapidly in the dim light. He moved with the silence of a spider. In his trembling hands, he held two .25 caliber pistols. Fred Oesterreich turned around. He froze, in the middle of beating his wife. He was confronted by this apparition. Was it a ghost? A hallucination brought on by the storm? He never got the chance to ask. The shadow raised his arm. He didn't speak. He simply fired. Bang, bang, bang. Fred Oesterreich hit the floor. The ghost of Los Angeles had claimed its victim. Now, in any normal story, this is where the hero comforts the victim. This is where Dolly, saved from a beating, falls into the arms of her rescuer. But this is not a normal story. As the smoke cleared and the thunder rumbled overhead, Dolly didn't say thank you. She didn't embrace the man who just killed for her. Instead, with a look of cold calculation, she shoved him back towards the dark hole in the wall. She hissed at him to get back inside. She closed the panel, locked it from the outside, and left him alone in the darkness with the rats. Then she walked to the closet, locked herself in, and began to scream for the police. Tonight, we open the dossier on one of the most bizarre, disturbing, and claustrophobic cases in criminal history. The story of a man who didn't run away after a murder, but went back to sleep directly above the body. This is the story of the Batman. To understand how a human being becomes a ghost, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back 10 years. To 1913 in the cold, industrial city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Fred and Dolly Oesterreich seemed like the perfect couple. Fred was successful, wealthy, and driven, but he was also a hard drinker, arrogant, and largely absent. Dolly was 33 years old. She was beautiful, yes, but she was also restless. She was a shrew, a woman with an insatiable appetite for attention that her husband simply didn't provide. One afternoon, Dolly's sewing machine broke down. It was a trivial event, something that happens every day. She called Fred's factory and asked for a repairman. The knock on the door came from a boy named Otto Sanhuber. Otto was 17. He was everything Fred was not. He was small, barely reaching Dolly's shoulder. He was nicknamed Apron Otto by his co-workers because he was soft, gentle, and easily bullied. He had no friends, no girlfriends, and no confidence. When Dolly opened the door, she didn't see a repairman. She saw a blank canvas. She saw a puppy she could train. Otto fixed the machine, but Dolly wasn't looking at his hands. She began to talk to him. For a lonely, invisible boy like Otto, having a wealthy, sophisticated woman pay attention to him was like staring into the sun. He was blinded. Dolly made her move quickly. She seduced him right there in her marital home. For Otto, it was love, the kind of obsessive, consuming love that destroys you. For Dolly, it was a game. They began an intense affair. They met in cheap hotels, they met in parks, they met in the back of cabs. But secrets in 1913 were hard to keep. The neighbors were watching. People were whispering. Fred was becoming suspicious. Dolly realized she was going to lose her new toy. She couldn't leave Fred, he had the money. But she couldn't give up Otto. He gave her the adoration she craved. So she came up with an idea so twisted, so manipulative that it borders on psychological horror. She took Otto's face in her hands, looked into his eyes, and said, "If you truly love me, you will disappear for me." She didn't mean leave town. She meant leave the world. She proposed that Otto move into her house, not into the guest room, but into the attic, the tiny, unfinished crawl space above her bedroom. And the most tragic part? Otto said yes.
Want you to pause and visualize the space Otto agreed to live in. This wasn't a finished attic. It was the space between the ceiling and the roof. It was a triangle of darkness, filled with insulation dust, raw wooden beams, and exposed pipes. Otto quit his job. He told his family he was moving away to seek his fortune. In reality, he walked into Dolly's house, climbed a ladder, and vanished. His life became a nightmare of sensory deprivation. During the day, while Fred was at work, Dolly would let him down. But he wasn't a guest. He was a servant. He scrubbed the floors. He washed the laundry. He cooked the food. He became a house elf, existing only to serve her. But when Fred came home in the evening, Otto had to retreat. Up in that attic, silence was his only religion. If he coughed, he would be discovered. If he sneezed, he smothered his face in a pillow until he nearly passed out. He couldn't walk because the floorboards would creak, so he lay flat on his stomach. For hours, every single night. He had a bucket for a toilet. He had a candle for light. He read books to keep his mind from snapping. But even the turning of a page had to be done slowly, silently. In the summer, the Milwaukee heat turned that attic into an oven. Temperatures soared over 100 degrees. He would lie there, sweating, dehydrated, gasping for air. In the winter, ice formed on the inside of the roof. He shivered under thin blankets, his teeth chattering, but he couldn't make a sound. He was living directly above the man whose wife he loved. He could hear Fred eating dinner. He could hear Fred laughing. And late at night, he could hear Fred and Dolly in the bedroom. Imagine the psychological torture, lying 6 inches above your lover, listening to her with her husband, unable to move, unable to speak. This didn't last for a week. It didn't last for a month. Otto Sanhuber lived in that attic for 5 years in Milwaukee. He became a ghost in his own life. Fred knew something was wrong. He wasn't a fool. Cigars would go missing. He would hear phantom footsteps in the kitchen. He would find doors unlocked that he had bolted shut. He told Dolly, "This house is haunted." Dolly would just laugh. "You're drinking too much, Fred," she'd say. "It's just your imagination." She was gaslighting him. And Otto, the Batman, was her weapon.
In 1918, Fred made a decision. He'd had enough of the haunted house in Milwaukee. He wanted a fresh start. He announced they were moving to sunny Los Angeles. Otto panicked. What would happen to him? Would he be left behind? But Dolly had a plan that required Otto to risk his life yet again. She went to the market and bought a large, reinforced wooden steamer trunk. She brought it up to the attic. She lined it with a quilt, and she told Otto to get in. Otto, now fully institutionalized by her control, curled his small, frail body into the box. Dolly locked the lid. This trunk wasn't carried by Dolly, it was shipped as freight. Think about that. Otto was thrown onto a dray cart, bounced around on the back of a truck, loaded into the cargo hold of a train. For days, he traveled across the American continent in pitch blackness, tossed around like luggage. He had a small bottle of water and a few crackers. If that trunk had been placed upside down, he would have died. If the train had been delayed, he would have suffocated. If a thief had cracked open the lock, he would have been discovered, but he survived. When the trunk arrived in the new mansion on North St. Andrews, place in Los Angeles, Dolly unlocked it. Otto crawled out, bruised, battered, and starving. And what was his reward? "Go to the attic, Otto. This one is smaller, but you'll fit." The new attic in LA was even worse. It had no floor. Otto had to balance on the wooden joists. If he slipped, his foot would punch right through the plaster ceiling of the bedroom, but he stayed. He was now deeply addicted to his captivity. He was writing stories, strange, erotic fiction about slaves and queens. His mind was gone. This brings us back to that stormy night in 1922. 10 years. Otto had been a prisoner for 10 years. When he heard the fighting that night, something in him finally broke. Maybe he thought Fred was going to kill Dolly. Maybe he just wanted it to end. He burst out. He fired the guns. Fred fell dead. But the tragedy is what happened next. After Dolly locked Otto back in the attic, the police arrived. They swarmed the house. They took photographs of the body. There were detectives smoking cigarettes, walking directly under the ceiling where the killer was hiding. Otto lay there, pressing his ear to the plaster, heart hammering against his ribs, clutching the murder weapons. He didn't breathe. The police searched the grounds. They searched the neighborhood. They looked for a burglar. They never looked up. Here is the twist that makes this story truly insane. With Fred dead, you would think Dolly would let Otto out. They could run away together. They could finally be a couple. She didn't. She inherited Fred's money. She bought fancy clothes. And she kept Otto in the attic. In fact, she started dating other men. She would bring her new lovers home, and Otto? He had to listen to them just like he had listened to Fred. He was still the servant. He was still the ghost. Months later, the cracks finally appeared. Dolly began an affair with her lawyer, Herman Shapiro. Eventually, she grew tired of her pet in the attic. She gave Otto a few dollars and simply kicked him out. Otto wandered into the world like an alien. He hadn't seen the sun properly in a decade. He went in as a boy of 17 and came out a broken man near 30. The secret exploded 7 years later. Herman, perhaps feeling guilty or realizing how dangerous Dolly was, went to the police. He told them there was a man living in the ceiling. The police found Otto living under a fake name, working as a quiet janitor. He didn't fight. He didn't lie. He seemed relieved to finally confess. In 1930, the Batman trial began. The public expected a monster. Instead, they saw a pathetic, trembling man. The jury realized this wasn't just a murder. It was a case of slavery and manipulation. They found Otto guilty of manslaughter, not murder, deciding he acted under the spell of a wicked woman. But here is the final twist. The statute of limitations for manslaughter was 7 years. The crime had taken place 8 years ago. The law couldn't touch him. The judge had no choice but to dismiss the case. Otto Sanhuber, the man who lived in a wall, walked out of court a free man. Dolly, through legal maneuvering, also escaped conviction. Otto changed his name and vanished into the crowds of Los Angeles, disappearing for good, this time on his own terms. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the dossier, make sure to follow for more.